My world ended not with a whimper, but with the searing hiss of acid. I died at my own fairy tale wedding. My twin sister, Chloe, was the one who threw the beaker of sulfuric acid at my face. Her usually plain, quiet face was twisted into a mask of pure madness. My agonized scream ripped through the joyous celebration, a sound that drew every eye in the grand hall. Chloe was the baby sister I had sheltered under my wing our entire lives. I couldn't comprehend it. Why? I choked out, the word dissolving into a pained gasp. Splashes of the corrosive liquid had landed on her own arm, eating away at the flesh, but she seemed oblivious to the pain, her laughter sharp and unhinged. "This is what you owe me, Elara," she shrieked. "I was always smarter than you, always had better grades. But just because you got plastic surgery and became some famous influencer, Mom and Dad suddenly only had eyes for you." Her voice cracked with a jealousy that had festered for years. "And him, even Julian, the man who gave you everything, he only ever saw you. I won't accept it. I never knew. I never knew." She blamed me for every perceived injustice in her life. As our parents and Julian rushed towards the scene, their faces etched with horror, a strange sense of satisfaction bloomed in my chest. "Chloe, you're a real..." Before I could finish, she hurled the last few drops from the bottle at me. Darkness consumed me. The pain in my body was excruciating, but my heart felt lighter than it had in years. Finally, I was free. The next second, the pain vanished. "Elara, don't you dare play sick to get out of school." The searing agony was gone, replaced by a blinding light. I blinked, my eyes adjusting to the sight of my old desk, cluttered with college entrance exam guides and practice tests. On the wall, a calendar. I had traveled back 10 years, to my senior year of high school. This was the year before I had even met Julian. I scrambled out of bed and rushed to the bathroom, staring at the reflection in the mirror. It was my face, my original, untouched face, young and pure. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I still had time. Everything could be different. This time I would avoid him at all costs. Surely, if I avoided Julian, I could avoid the fate that awaited me. But I had forgotten. My first meeting with Julian had been right here, at school. He was a celebrated alumnus, a medical student at a top-tier university, invited back to give a motivational speech to us seniors. In my past life, I had accidentally bumped into him in the hallway. That was the spark that ignited the inferno of our relationship. This time, I took a different route, deliberately staying clear of that hallway. It was then that I overheard the whispers of my classmates. "Julian is so handsome. Did you see?" He was holding Chloe's hand when they came in. I froze, my gaze snapping to the front of the auditorium where my sister sat. Her face, a near mirror of my own, was flushed a deep crimson. A fresh scrape on her knee was still beading with blood. I subconsciously touched my own knee. Last time, I was the one who had collided with Julian, and I was the one with the scraped knee. This time, it was Chloe. As if she felt my stare, she turned her head, her eyes meeting mine. For a fleeting moment, I saw it, a flicker of something cold and sharp, an ancient hatred that had no place in a teenager's eyes. I understood in an instant. She had been reborn, too. I quickly schooled my features into a look of innocent confusion. She hesitated, then turned back around. Just like in my first life, Julian's speech was the highlight of the event. And just like before, when it ended, he gently took my sister's hand and led her away, presumably to the nurse's office. It was a perfect, chilling reenactment. I remembered how the other girls in my class had turned on me after Julian had shown me favor, making my school life a living hell and causing my grades to plummet. Now that the roles were reversed, I wondered how Chloe would handle it. "If I had known, I would have waited by the stairs too," I said aloud to a group of girls, my voice laced with faux envy. Maybe I could have had a chance encounter with Julian. The comment, though seemingly innocent, planted a seed. The girls around me started whispering, and the way they looked at Chloe began to change. Sure enough, the next day, the girls in our class began to give Chloe the cold shoulder. Whenever she approached a group, they would suddenly disperse, leaving her standing alone with a thunderous expression. Instead, they flocked to me. As a day student who lived off campus, I could be their go-between, buying them snacks and magazines from the outside world. I agreed to all of their requests. In my past life, I had been too lazy to bother with such errands and was branded as antisocial. This time, my cheerful compliance won me a host of new friends. My victory was short-lived. That weekend, my mother informed me that my off-campus privileges had been revoked. I was now required to live in the dorms. I didn't miss the flash of triumph on Chloe's face. She was working tirelessly to derail my previous life's trajectory. Last time, being a day student allowed me frequent contact with Julian. By forcing me to live on campus, she was cutting off that possibility. Little did she know, she was handing me exactly what I wanted. To help me integrate more quickly, my teacher assigned me to the same dorm room as Chloe. But when I walked through the door, I found my new roommates were cold and distant. I was puzzling over their attitude when Chloe emerged from the bathroom. "Sister," she said loudly, "what have you got in that suitcase? A whole cosmetics counter?" Our high school prioritized academics above all else. I had gotten in with good grades, but my focus had shifted to my appearance, and my scores had suffered. At Chloe's words, the other girls looked at me with open disdain, as if I were a virus they were afraid of catching. I said nothing, quietly moving to the empty bed, which was already cluttered with someone else's things. Chloe made a show of helping me, then accidentally knocked my suitcase off the bed. "Oh, sister, I'm so sore." Her apology died in her throat. Spilling across the floor wasn't the mountain of makeup and skincare she'd expected, but a suitcase packed to the brim with advanced study guides and review materials. The entire room had been watching. When they saw the books, their eyes lit up. "I've been trying to find this review book everywhere. Could I possibly borrow it?" one of the girls asked. I smiled and handed it to her. "Of course. We're roommates now. Let's all work hard together and get into great universities." In the pressure cooker environment of senior year, a studious and helpful roommate was a prized commodity. The tension in the room dissipated as the other girls welcomed me with open arms. Chloe, however, was seething. She cornered me, her voice a low hiss. "Sister, I saw you pack your bottles and jars. How did they turn into my study materials?" "Oh, those," I said, sighing dramatically. "Right before I left, Mom threw out all my makeup. She insisted I take your old books and focus on my studies." Chloe's anger curdled into a smirk. "Well, sister, you did promise Mom you'd get into the top 20 in our class on the next monthly exam." Someone across the room snorted. In our competitive school, jumping 20 places was a Herculean feat, not something you could achieve just by studying hard. "And what if I do?" I challenged. Chloe knew her taunt had worked. "If you do, I'll give you my entire scholarship fund." "You have a deal," I said, as our roommates watched with glee. I settled in and began to study. After so many years, I had forgotten most of the material, but my younger brain was a remarkable thing. Perhaps it was a side effect of being reborn, but the dense, complex text in the books no longer felt like a burden. After reading a passage a few times, the information cemented itself in my memory. The monthly exam arrived in a blur. Thanks to some careless gossip, my bet with Chloe was now common knowledge throughout the school. The moment I entered the exam hall, I was a magnet for attention. After enduring the math portion, I moved on to my history and politics exam. Suddenly, a small paper wad landed on my desk. Before I could even touch it, a sharp voice pierced the silence from behind me. "Teacher, someone is cheating." Cheating was the ultimate sin at our school. The dean of students, a stern man with thick, black-framed glasses, stormed toward my desk. He snatched my exam paper and the balled-up note. "You. To my office, now." I glanced at the clock. There were only 30 minutes left, and I had already completed most of the test. I followed him to the dean's office. "Cheating on an exam means all your scores are voided. Call your parents to the school immediately." "Sir," I interrupted calmly. "One only needs to cheat if they don't know the answers, correct?" The vast majority of the questions on that paper, I knew how to answer. There would be no need for me to take such a risk. As I spoke, I picked up my exam paper from his desk and, without missing a beat, began to recite my answers, one by one, calmly and clearly. The teachers in the office exchanged stunned looks. After reciting my own work, I finally opened the crumpled note. The answers on it were for basic questions, and they weren't even as comprehensive as the ones I had given. I placed my paper and the note side by side on the dean's desk. "Sir, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. After the storms I had weathered in my previous life, this little squall was nothing. An 18-year-old girl might have been crushed by such an accusation, her reputation ruined. It was a crude but effective tactic. Unfortunately for them, they had picked the wrong target." The school reviewed the security footage, which showed me writing diligently the entire time, never once looking at the note. They found the boy who threw it, but he brushed it off as a prank between friends. With final exams looming, the school decided to let the matter drop. When the results came out, I had successfully climbed 20 places in the class rankings. I received 2 fortunes, one from Chloe, and one from my mother. I deposited both into my bank account and dedicated myself completely to my studies. One weekend, I was in the library when I had an unexpected encounter. It was like a scene from a movie. I pulled a book from a shelf, and through the newly created gap, my eyes met Julian's. I saw that familiar spark of proprietary interest in his gaze, and a chill went down my spine. Then, a voice came from behind me. "Sister, what are you doing here?" Chloe walked to Julian's side, her eyes fixed on me with suspicion. Julian paused. "You two know each other?" "This is my twin sister," Chloe said, her reluctance palpable. Julian looked from me to Chloe and back again. Chloe's face soured. "We were born from the same womb, but from childhood, I had always been considered the prettier one, the one who had inherited all the best features from our parents." Panicked, Chloe grabbed Julian's arm and started pulling him away. I stood my ground, head bowed, feeling Julian's gaze linger on me. Long after they had gone, I realized my back was soaked with sweat. In my past life, I had fallen headfirst into the pink-hued trap Julian had woven for me. I abandoned my studies, never even making it to university, and devoted my entire existence to him. He was a genius plastic surgeon, but no one knew that I was his first experiment. Eventually, I was no longer his girlfriend, but simply his creation, a work of art. He wouldn't allow a single flaw on his masterpiece. My face was no longer my own. At the slightest sign of imperfection, he would personally correct it. I had lost count of the times I had lain on that cold operating table, the number of injections I had endured. Everyone envied me for having such a wonderful boyfriend, but no one understood my torment. I had become a vine, hopelessly entwined around him. My house, my car, my influencer persona, he had given me all of it. My body, my face, they all belonged to Julian. I was a marionette whose strings he held. Without him, I was a fish out of water, gasping for air. Remembering the suffering, I touched my own, real face. Thank God. There was still time. No scalpels had touched it, and no acid had burned it. Reborn, I would not walk that path again. Watching Chloe's retreating back, a slow smile spread across my face. "Since you want it all so badly, then you can have it." Back at school, I found that the girls were once again beginning to ostracize me. I was left out of class activities and became a solitary figure. I paid it no mind. My only focus was on my books. I had no time for the petty dramas of teenage girls. Then one day, I overheard the reason in the bathroom. "Is Alara really with Julian now?" I heard she actively seduced him. I was stunned. This time, I had gone out of my way to avoid him, yet I was still being dragged down the same path as before. In my past life, I had abandoned my education for Julian. And the isolation at school had only pushed me further away, until I dropped out without even a high school diploma. That lack of independence had made me utterly dependent on him. This time, their gossip was meaningless to me. I flushed the toilet and strode out. The girls gossiping outside jumped, shocked to see the subject of their conversation standing right before them. I approached with a bright smile. It seems there's been a misunderstanding. I don't even know anyone named Julian. But I saw you getting out of his car, one girl challenged. Are you sure it was me you saw? I asked, my expression one of pure innocence. The girl faltered. My sister and I look about 90% alike, I said lightly. You might be blaming the wrong person. With that, I turned and walked away. If Chloe wanted me to be her scapegoat, she had another thing coming. She made her bed, she could lie in it. Life in the classroom soon became difficult for Chloe. After realizing she had deliberately misled them into isolating me while she was the one. Seeing Julian, the other girls felt deceived and turned on her. Chloe, however, seemed unfazed by the social fallout, it was a trivial matter to her. But I knew the real turning point was fast approaching. After evening study hall, Chloe blocked my path. You've been reborn, too, haven't you? I wasn't surprised she had figured it out. Chloe had been smart enough to get into a top university in her first life, she was no fool. I watched her calmly, waiting to see why she had chosen this moment for a confrontation. I'm warning you, she hissed, stay away from Julian. This time, I'm the one who will be the famous influencer. I'm the one who will marry him. I recalled that around this time in my past life, Julian and I had just made our relationship official. I had poured all my teenage confessions into a diary, a diary that later went missing. I had been too preoccupied to think about it then, but now it was clear. The diary had been safe at home, Chloe must have stolen it. It all made sense now. The sulfuric acid at the wedding wasn't a spontaneous act of madness. It all began with that diary. Chloe had used my own words, my own feelings, to capture Julian's attention. The fact that he hadn't made things official with her yet must have been making her desperate. But she didn't know. She didn't know that once their relationship was official, the nightmare would begin. I leaned in close, whispering in her ear. Chloe, he's in love with me. I watched the panic flash in her eyes, her expression shifting through a storm of emotions. Satisfied, I walked away. She was starting to panic. Good. That's when people make reckless decisions. Chloe dropped out of school. At the most critical point of her senior year, she just stopped coming. Her family pleaded with her, but she was resolute, insisting she could study more effectively at home. No one could change her mind. I watched with cold detachment as she eagerly stepped onto the path that had been my ruin. I poured my energy into my studies, and my grades soared even higher. Shortly before the final college entrance exams, I saw Chloe again. Her face was swollen like proofing dough, the fresh incisions of a double eyelid surgery still stark and angry. I was shocked. She looked at me with smug satisfaction. We're together now. He did the surgery for me. At this point, Julian was not the top-tier cosmetic surgeon he would become. He was a nobody, a rookie. His future fame was built on my body. There was hardly a single part of me, from head to toe, that he hadn't altered. And now, Chloe was reveling in it. I looked at her, and it was like seeing a ghost of my former self, so foolish. You can only rely on yourself. This time I would hold all the cards. Chloe, annoyed by my lack of reaction, opened her mouth to say something, but was cut off. Julian had appeared behind her. You must be Chloe's sister, he said. Chloe stiffened, turning to face him. I didn't miss the flicker of predatory interest in Julian's eyes as he looked at me, and I knew Chloe had seen it too. She tightened her grip on his arm. Let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend. She was staking her claim. But Julian's eyes never left my face. Alara, he said, his voice smooth as silk, have you ever considered a little adjustment? The color drained from Chloe's face. No, thank you. I don't need one. Without another word, I turned and walked into the exam hall. This life, I would rely only on myself. When the exam results were released, they shocked everyone. I, the perennial underachiever, had scored high enough to get into a prestigious university. Meanwhile, Chloe, always the star student, hadn't even qualified for a standard four-year college. I returned home to the sound of her arguing with our mother. "Chloe, do you have any idea how expensive a private college is?" my mother shrieked. "If you can pay for it, you can go. If not, then forget it." Chloe stared at our mother in disbelief. The mother who had always been so gentle with her in our past life was now spitting venom. "I don't need your money. I'll earn it myself." "Earn it? With no diploma and a face like that? Where exactly do you plan to earn anything?" Chloe stormed out of the house without a backward glance. I watched the drama unfold with an air of detached amusement. Everything that had happened to me in my first life was now happening to her. Seeing it from the outside, I finally understood how naive I had been. I took the living expenses my mother gave me and set off for university. I knew from my past life that social media was the future. That summer, I started building my own online presence. #how I topped the exams in 3 months. As a former influencer, I knew exactly what kind of content grabbed people's attention. My account grew faster than I could have imagined, and I earned my first capital. Combined with the money I had saved, I opened a small digital media studio. I signed several influencers who I knew would become huge in the future and began incubating their accounts, creating the prototype of a successful MCN agency. I was so busy I barely had time to breathe, completely unaware of the new storm Chloe was brewing. By the time I noticed, it was already a tempest. One day, my social media account was flooded with comments accusing me of bullying my own sister. I followed the trail to Chloe's account. She was clever, I had to give her that. She knew the internet thrived on drama. #a day and he life ofagral who failed here exams. #trying to smile through an unfair life. #the two paths of twin sisters. In her videos, she hinted that her failure was due to our parents' favoritism and the relentless bullying she endured from me at school, which destroyed her confidence and her future. The narrative was compelling, her life, ruined by those closest to her. Online vigilantes tracked down my account, and the tide of public opinion turned against me violently. The comment section became a cesspool of hate, and someone even doxed my personal information. The university was contacted, and my academic advisor called me in, concerned about the complaints being filed against me on Chloe's behalf. Through it all, I remained silent, continuing to post my regular content as if nothing was happening, weathering the storm of online abuse. My silence only emboldened Chloe, and the controversy grew, her follower count soaring. When I judged the time was right, I released the clarification video I had prepared long ago. It began with security footage from our home, Chloe confronting our parents, them begging her not to throw away her education, and her storming out defiantly. Next was an interview with our former head teacher, who spoke of Chloe with regret, stating clearly that her failure was her own doing. When asked about me, he paused, then said that in the last semester of high school, I was like a different person, focused solely on my studies with almost no social life. Classmates from my year appeared in the comments, confirming his account. They testified that I was a loner, and if any bullying had occurred, I was the one who had been isolated. The narrative flipped instantly. The public, feeling duped, turned on Chloe. Her carefully constructed drama collapsed, and the internet mob descended on her accounts. The backlash from the reversal sent my own follower count skyrocketing. I watched the numbers climb, a secret smile on my face. Everything was going exactly as I had planned. I had let the story marinate, and now, I was reaping the rewards. Chloe had unwittingly given my career the biggest boost imaginable. Her online reputation was in tatters, but a person capable of trying to murder her own sister wasn't going to be brought down by mere public opinion. Black fame was still fame. She pivoted, becoming a beauty influencer, a dark mirror of my own past life. While I had shared tips on makeup and style, she documented her do-over face, sharing her journey through plastic surgery to a course of ridicule and scorn. But there was no denying it, under Julian's guidance, Chloe was becoming more and more beautiful. I calculated the time. She must have had 3, maybe 4 procedures by now. The side effects of so many surgeries in such a short time would be appearing soon. I was waiting for the inevitable downfall when an unexpected visitor appeared at my company. Julian looked as surprised to see me as I was to see him. "Ilara?" My colleague looked between us. Ms. Shen, you know each other? Julian raised an eyebrow. This is? My apologies, my colleague said. This is our company's CEO, Ms. Shen. Ms. Shen, this is Dr. Chu, the surgeon I mentioned who I believe has great potential for us to manage. I offered a noncommittal smile. In my past life, I was the face while Julian remained hidden in the shadows, his clinic flooded with clients I had influenced. This time, Chloe had clearly failed to provide the same boost, forcing him to seek fame himself. Alara, he began, I wonder if Chloe has mentioned me to you. Of course, I said, my smile unwavering as I saw that familiar, dazed look cross his face. I knew that look all too well. This time, I would be the one pulling the strings. Dr. Chu, I said, turning my full attention to him, our company would be thrilled to have you. We'll assign our best team to you. Our goal will be to make you the most famous star surgeon in the industry. I saw the greed flicker in his eyes. He was hooked. And this time, he was destined to be ruined by my hand. Julian signed with my company. He was cautious, even bringing a lawyer friend to review the contract before signing. I watched with a serene smile, quickly securing the documents once they were signed. Dr. Chu, I said conspiratorially, I hope you won't mention my involvement to Chloe. He looked confused. I'm afraid she might misunderstand. Comprehension dawned on his face, and he nodded. Everything proceeded according to the contract. I poured company resources into his brand, pushing him into the public eye. Using my knowledge of the future, I signed a stable of influencers who were destined for fame, and together, we propelled the company to the top of the industry. Julian, to his credit, was a valuable asset. His handsome face and technical skill earned him a massive following. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. Even Chloe, against all odds, had carved out a niche for herself online, her growing legion of face fans ignoring the sea of hate she received. One day, after a long meeting, my phone rang. It was Chloe. Get back here, now, she snapped, then hung up. I checked the date. Time had flown. It was the anniversary of the day my world had first fallen apart. I went home, slowly changed my clothes, and took a taxi to the shabby old apartment I once called home. The whole family was there. Chloe sat silently on the sofa, our mother wept softly at the dining table, and our father chain-smoked in the corner. When they heard me enter, all eyes turned to me. What's going on? I asked. Chloe's eyes had been boring into me since I arrived. As if you don't know. I feigned innocence. My mother broke the silence. Alara, your father, he has a mistress. And she's pregnant. My father continued to smoke, saying nothing. I put on a shocked expression. How could this happen? The accusation spurred my mother to action. She launched herself at my father, her fists raining down on him. He shoved her away, enraged. You're no better. All you do is play mahjong. You've gambled away all our money. A nerve was struck. They began screaming at each other, years of resentment and ugly secrets pouring out like sewage. Chloe watched them, her face a mask of disbelief. I smirked inwardly. This was the exact same scene they had performed for me in my past life. Our seemingly happy home was rotten to the core. Back then, my mother had forbidden me from telling Chloe, insisting we couldn't disrupt the family's star student. So I shouldered the burden alone. As a minor public figure, I was an easy target, a cash machine for their parasitic needs. They took almost every penny I earned to support my mother's gambling and my father's second family. Chloe knew none of it. She was free to focus on her studies, untouched by the filth of our family life. This time, since she wanted my life so desperately, she could enjoy all of it. I looked down at my own faded jeans and bit my lip. Mom, Dad, please stop fighting. I have a few $1,000s saved up. Why don't you take it? We can't take money from a student, my father grumbled, before he and my mother looked in unison at Chloe. She wasn't a student anymore. She was a famous influencer, and everyone knew influencers made a fortune. Chloe stood up, brushing down her expensive skirt. She looked down at me. See? This is why I say studying is useless. My mother rushed to her side, fawning. Yes, yes, our Chloe is the successful one. So beautiful and so good at making money. Pleased, Chloe took out her phone and transferred 50,000 to each of them. Our parents were stunned. They knew she made money, but they had no idea how much. 100,000, just like that. As they showered her with praise, Chloe shot me a triumphant, challenging look. I hid my smile. 100,000. This was only the beginning. Are you ready, Chloe? After that day, my parents rarely called me. They were too busy flattering Chloe, living off the scraps she threw them. I was happy to be left alone, focusing on my company. As the business grew, I stopped updating my personal accounts and moved completely behind the scenes. Then, I got a call from Julian. Elara, where are you? I was just stepping out of the elevator into the underground parking garage. Before I could answer, a pair of headlights flashed. It was Julian's Mercedes. I hung up and walked over. There's something I need to discuss with you. I'm taking you somewhere. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't place it. I got into the car. The moment the door closed, the central locks clicked shut. And then I realized. In this life, Julian and I were not close. He always called me Ms. Shin. But just now, on the phone, he had called me Elara. The tone, the intonation, it was identical to my past life. Could it be? Had Julian been reborn, too? I turned to look at him, my blood running cold. I met his narrow gaze and saw it there, clear as day, that familiar, terrifying madness. It was a trap. I was on a pirate ship. That was my last thought before the world went black. When I came to, I was lying on a cold, hard surface. It was a surgical table. My body went rigid with terror. Julian stood with his back to me. Julian, I said, my voice trembling, this is kidnapping. This is illegal. He turned, a scalpel in his hand, a crazed light glinting behind his gold-rimmed glasses. Elara. You are my most brilliant creation. Look at you now, so plain, so ugly. Let me help you. Let me make you perfect again. I shook my head, the chilling memories of countless surgeries flooding back, my teeth chattering with fear. No. I regret it. Why can't you just let me go? Let you go? He laughed, a chilling, insane sound. You are mine. Every part of you, down to a single strand of your hair, belongs to me. And you want me to let you go? I screamed, hoping someone would hear me, but he just watched, knowing we were completely alone. But in the next second, the unexpected happened. The door to the operating room was thrown open. Chloe? Julian glared at the intruder. Chloe's face was a grotesque parody of its former beauty, a landscape of scars and unnaturally sharp angles carved by Julian's own hand. She stormed over to the bed and saw me lying there, helpless. Julian. I sacrificed everything for you. How could you do this to me? She shrieked. Julian ignored her. If not for my interference in this lifetime, he would never have given Chloe a second glance. She, unaware that he was also reborn, swept the surgical instruments off the nearby tray, sending scalpels clattering to the floor. Julian's face went cold. Get out. Chloe, stunned by his tone, turned her fury on me. Why did you have to seduce him again? I was still strapped to the table. Believe it or not, I gasped, I was forced into this. She hesitated, looking from me to Julian. Just then, Julian's phone rang. As he turned to answer it, Chloe snatched a fallen scalpel and lunged at me. I twisted my head aside just in time, the blade missed my face by a fraction of an inch. Terrified by her frenzy, Julian quickly undid my restraints. I seized the opportunity and fled. I knew this place like the back of my hand from my past life. I found a safe room, locked the door, and called the police. They arrived quickly. Julian's illegal, private operating room was shut down. His career as a doctor was over. The rising star of cosmetic surgery had fallen. And then came my lawsuit. The contract he had signed stated in black and white that if his reputation was ruined due to his own actions, he would face enormous penalties. In other words, every resource I had invested in him, he now had to pay back, with interest. I had been preparing for this day since the moment he signed. I just never calculated that he, too, had been reborn. Fortunately, I had survived. Julian's life, however, was effectively destroyed. Once a man loses power, even the stray dogs will kick him. The Julian that Chloe had loved was the successful, famous one, not this bankrupt wretch drowning in debt. He tried to contact her, but she refused to see him. So, he came for me. I had hired a full-time bodyguard after the incident. With my current net worth, I couldn't afford to take any chances. Julian waited for me outside my company building. I tried to ignore him, but his words stopped me in my tracks. I have dirt on Chloe. I paused, looking at the USB drive in his hand. Enough to ruin her on the internet forever. Do you want it? He asked. When I hesitated, he added, just let me off the hook, and it's all yours. I smiled sweetly. Julian, I don't engage in illegal activities. I paused. However, if you two have some personal scores to settle, I'm willing to give you a little push. And if I'm in a good mood afterward, maybe I'll consider letting you off the hook. I turned and walked away. Julian watched me go, his hand tightening around the USB drive. The next day, the internet exploded. A massive scandal involving Chloe erupted, with detailed allegations of her trading sexual favors for career advancement. Compared to that, the accusations that she'd lured young girls to unlicensed clinics for surgery seemed minor. In a matter of hours, her reputation was annihilated. I, of course, had helped fan the flames. Soon after, a heavily disguised Chloe appeared at my office building. She marched toward me, but my bodyguard blocked her path. Elara. Was this your doing? She screamed. I don't have that kind of power, I said calmly. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for your poor taste in men. Julian is like a rabid dog right now, biting anyone he can reach. So it was him, she snarled, then spun around and left. I was delighted to watch the dogs tear each other apart. And Chloe did not disappoint. She went public with her own story, exposing Julian for performing illegal cosmetic procedures on her, countless surgeries in a short span of time. For that, Julian went to prison. Chloe's face, ravaged by too many procedures, began to break down. The injected fillers shifted, creating lumps and valleys. Her eyes wouldn't close properly, the bridge of her nose was crooked, and her mouth was numb, her speech slurred. But even then, our two resident vampires wouldn't leave her alone. Chloe, you're a big influencer. How can you not even have 100,000? I had come at Chloe's summons, curious to see the final act of this tragedy. Her accounts had been banned platform-wide, her ability to earn money was gone. I have no money. How many times do I have to say it? She shrieked. Our mother panicked. But if I don't pay back the 100,000 today, they're going to chop off my hand. Chloe stared at her as if she were a stranger. How much did you lose gambling? Maybe, 1 million, or so. Chloe looked like she was going to faint. Are you insane? I thought I could win it back, our mother whimpered. Our father chose that moment to chime in. And, Chloe, your little brother needs to start preschool. I was wondering if you could lend me some money. I told you, I don't have any money. Chloe screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. Why don't you ask her? Elara? She's just a poor student. What money could she have? I patted my faded jeans and nodded in agreement. You've all been fooled by her. She has money. Mom, Dad, I said earnestly, all my scholarship money and the wages for my part-time jobs add up to about 5,000. I can transfer it to you. My mother waved her hand dismissively. What good is that? She went back to pestering Chloe. My father said nothing, but his eyes were also fixed on his ruined daughter. Chloe finally broke. The savings she had fought so hard to accumulate were completely drained by her parasitic parents. I watched the spectacle with pure satisfaction. In my past life, I'd had chances to escape Julian, but it was my own parents who had pushed me back into his clutches. They had personally walked me to my doom. In their eyes, I wasn't a daughter, I was a bank account. Even without Chloe, I wouldn't have survived long in that hell. This time, Chloe got her wish. She got my life. And now she knew. The only reason she'd been able to study in peace, shielded from the world, was because I had been carrying the weight of it all on my shoulders. The next time I heard about Chloe, it was from a police officer. She and our mother had been missing for 2 weeks. The old apartment had been mortgaged and lost, they had been renting a room somewhere. The landlord had called the police when he couldn't reach them for the rent. My father and I were called to the station. The police said that based on phone records, it was highly likely they had been lured overseas by a fraud syndicate. We were told to prepare for the worst. Hearing the news, I felt nothing. Leaving the police station, my father's jaw dropped when he saw my gleaming Rolls-Royce Cullinan. He sidled up to me, his face stretched into a sycophantic grin. "Elara, is this your car?" I nodded. "Elara, your brother." "I don't have a brother," I said, my voice flat as I stared directly at him. "And if you don't want your entire department to find out about your affair with a married woman, I suggest you never contact me again." The color drained from his face. "How did you?" "Ms. Shen," my bodyguard said, handing me a thick folder. It contained everything the private investigator had found, his abuse of power, his affairs, his corruption. My father clutched the file, speechless. "So," he finally whispered, "what Chloe said was true." His quiet, overlooked daughter was the truly ruthless one. I gave him a dazzling smile, then turned and walked away. This life, no one could ever hold me back again. The sky was vast, and this bird was finally free to fly. My name is Elara. And I am reborn.